Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played in the NHL for, of course, the New York Rangers and the Los Angeles Kings, and then served as a player agent for several years and sort of knows the game inside and out. And Tom, there's a lot going on in the NHL, some of which is unrelated to what's happening on the ice. And, of course, I'm speaking about the coronavirus. Which has become sort of news around the league. The San Jose Sharks sort of defied a recommendation from health officials by playing a game there in San Jose. And then, of course, this past weekend, Commissioner Gary Bettman had to come out and talk a little bit about what their plans on. And I think he has the right tact, in my opinion. He's sort of taking a wait and see. They're not getting overly aggressive, but I think they're kind of watching it, and I think they're preparing for the possibility, if it comes to this, of playing without fans. That's a possibility. Now we're a long way from that, I think, but we're already seeing events being canceled. The tennis tournament has been canceled in Indian Wells, in California. The World Championships for women, the IHF. Has said, we're not going to play that, that was scheduled to be played in Canada, and a lot of the events around the world are already being canceled. So, two questions to you. Number one, do you think the NHL is handling this correctly? Do you think the hockey world is handling it correctly? And number two, what if it came to that? Can you imagine, as a former NHL player yourself, playing in an arena where there are no fans, and what would be the impact on the competition?
Well, that would be different. Well, first of all, I think I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist too, and I think the NHL started the whole coronavirus thing just to get the media out of the locker rooms. That's been their goal for decades now. But you're retired now too, so no, I'm joking, obviously. Listen, I think Gary Bettman and the NHL is handling it fantastic right now. I mean, New York has got a lot going on with the coronavirus. There's a number of people have been diagnosed and closing schools and canceling events and everything. So we're kind of front and center with it. And I just think that, again, I'm not being a doctor. I think that the calm attitude that they have is good. Listen, we're aware of it. This is not a good thing that's happening. We're not underplaying it, but we're not going to add to the panic. Like I was in Costco the other day, and the shelves are emptying out. There's no toilet paper left, no wipes. I think it's more people are thinking, geez, I better grab stuff because everybody else is going to grab it, so I need to grab it. I think, the NHL is rightfully so saying, okay, listen, this is something we need to be aware of, but let's not get carried away with it. I was kind of surprised, but I guess somewhat pleasantly surprised San Jose went ahead and played. But I guess the other part of me is like, well, I mean, the other part is, what if something had happened? What if somebody had the virus, it was there, infected other people? I hate to say it, but the implications health-wise, but also liability issues for the team in the NHL. So I was kind of surprised to see that, but obviously it went well.
Well, and Tom, there, the at-risk group, that includes you and me.
Yeah, totally.
We're beyond that, age grouping. Yeah. Although it does seem, from at least from my reading, and I certainly have no expertise in. But from what I've read, it's primarily affected people over 70 and people with underlying health issues. But, it is fascinating, and this takes it out of the realm of sports, but, worth bringing up the impact on life this has. Like I just prior to coming on to this podcast, I'm watching the stock market opening, which has just plummeted, and they actually had to take a break. It's a pause built into the system. And if the stock market falls, I believe it's 6%, maybe it's 7%, but I think it's 6%. You take a 15-minute cleansing breath where everybody just stops and says, okay, what's going on here? And, not get in a full market crash. And if it goes to 13, we could see another pause. But, the impact on sports world probably is minute compared to the impact on the world, but it is going to be interesting. Going now to what I asked you for the second question, playing, if it came to that.
Oh, yes.
And you played with an empty arena. Now, we've all seen, and particularly in hockey, it's a momentum game.
Yep.
And boy, we've seen crowds have an impact. Like what happens to playoff races? I mean, if you don't have your home crowd.
Yeah. I mean, you do. I hate to pick on certain teams, but you look at most recent teams like maybe like Florida, who hasn't really drawn big crowds, and you watch some of those games on TV with all the empty seats. And it just seems like it's a really, it's I guess not gonna say boring game, but you can see how much the crowd adds to the atmosphere of the game, right? The noise and everything, and that's going to be gone. You're right. I mean, it could be a big, huge game with like a up and down the ice, great saves and hitting and everything like that. But there's no crowd noise. It's like it's part of you. Just you expect that as a player, as a fan. So to watch that on TV will be interesting. And as a player, I guess that's more, that's that discipline, right? Where you've got to prepare, and you can't, you say to yourself, listen, you don't have to talk about this in the past. Like sometimes people think when it's a big game 7 in the playoffs, do you prepare differently than you would for, the first game of the regular season? But that's where it's really important to always follow your process. So it doesn't matter what the situation is, you have your process that you use to get ready for each game. And that's why it's really going to be important, even more so for each player and the coaches and the team together to prepare the same way they would if it was a game 7 with a packed building. That's going to be a lot of discipline on their part.
Well, I'm going to bring this up just because it's the only example, and it's not a good one. But it's the only example I've got of what it would be like. And I think back to when my now adult children were middle school and high school athletes, particularly middle school, because those games are played at 3:30 in the afternoon, right after school. So as a sports writer who works a lot at night, or I'm working on my own time, I was one of the few adults who could go watch my kids play middle school sports, and you'd go to those games and there'd be 6 people in the stand. And what struck me as I watched what's going on is that the competition becomes just pure, because all it is your athletes, your kids, your children, your school's athletes against their school's athletes, and all they're concentrating, they being the athletes, are their opponents. It's whatever intensity is in that game comes directly from the game.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah.
And it was fascinating. It was fascinating to sort of watch that, because you know what? Those were still competitive games. Because and I guarantee you, if I went back and saw films of Tom Laidlaw playing shinny out on the lakes, or when there was just you and 7 of your friends, that you got worked up in some of those games.
Oh, totally. I tell the story all the time, about that competitiveness and where do you get it, and how does it build and all that. When I was a kid in grade school on the farm, going to a Loa public school in right outside of Brampton, Ontario, we would have field day coming up. So we'd have things like the relay races and everything. So we would the teachers would leave it up to us to pick the teams, like for the relay race, for example. So we would get all like our buddies together, like 10 of us, and we'd all race down the field, and the top 4 guys were supposedly going to make the relay race. Well, I would inevitably end up 5th or 6th. So I would make them keep on racing again and again until I would get to be the top 4. So guys would just get tired out. So I would make the top 4. So, okay, I'm on the team. So yeah, you're right.
Your deviousness at a young age is not.
I know. I think back about that. I just laughed to myself. Like I couldn't win, but I was going to tire him out. I was going to win one.
Well, but that was your athletic ability. That was shining through. Your endurance was why you played in the NHL. I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. I think back to the stories that Gordie Howe's late brother once told me about his brother being banned from elementary school hockey. Actually, he wasn't banned. He was just so much better than everyone that they decreed that in the school against school competition, he had to play goal.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because he was so much better than everyone, and he was bigger. And that's another remarkable story about Gordie Howe. I'm getting off the subject here, but I'll go back to it. But Gordie Howe played his entire career at 6'1", 202 pounds, and he seemed, when you talk to people that era, he seemed like a giant, because everybody else who was playing was 5'10", 155.
Right.
So he was 45, 50 pounds heavier. But in today's game, he's not even average. I think the average player is 6'2", 205 now, somewhere in there.
Yep.
So It's just a difference of the era. Well, let's move off that subject now. And I don't think we've heard the last of it though. I think we're gonna.
Here's the key though too. If we're going to pass along a health tip, eat your ginger. Like I've got into juicing, so every morning we have ginger juice with beets and cucumbers. So the ginger, if you've ever tasted ginger, it'll kill anything. There's no virus going to get.
Does that mean that you can't stand it or what?
Oh, it's nasty. Yeah. I was probably about 3 months ago. We were playing a charity game up in Boston. The next day we had another charity game back here in New York against the Bruins. I woke up, sore throat, feeling like I had a cold going on. Somebody suggested I go down Whole Foods, like it was, or whoever, and get a ginger shot. I was like, ginger shot? I'm a farm boy. We do shots of tequila. We don't do shots of ginger. So I went down and did it. Tasted nasty. They put turmeric in it and I think cayenne pepper. And the idea is it's supposed to burn, and it did. It was awful. But the sore throat and cold was gone. And so now I've made it a habit. Now I got this juicer. So every morning it's beet juice and ginger juice and cucumbers. Cucumbers supposedly got a great source of citrulline in it to get your blood pumping. So that's the health tip of the day.
So, you're up at 3:30. The coffee's being made. You probably got the coffee on, and by 3.
No coffee. Amino acids with caffeine in it.
Oh, you don't do coffee anymore?
No, it's got caffeine. The amino acids has the caffeine in it. So amino acids are really good for your muscles. So you go to the gym, it refurbishes your muscles as you're working out.
Okay, so what time do you do the ginger shot then?
Ginger shot usually around 3:40. So the bed's made, gone downstairs. We make our amino acids, the powder with water, and then we put a little extra L-citrulline in it, and then the ginger shot happens.
Now, when you go down to Whole Foods, do you sidle up to the bar and say, "Give me a double"?
No, we don't do that. That'd be good though. That'd be excellent. No, we make ours at home. We go to a little farm here we have close by. Get our fresh ginger, fresh beets, and fresh cucumbers. So the ginger comes like it's a root. You chop it up a little bit and put it in the juicer, and it comes out. Man, puts hair in your chest.
Well, I may be one of the few people who actually like beets, so I could actually, the ginger doesn't sound too appetizing.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, it is. I swear to you, like if you want to get going in the morning, first of all, it does that. But I think I've read up on all the health benefits from it, and it's tremendous.
Well, we are not on the Food Network. We are a hockey show, so let's move on.
We should be.
Yeah, well, you could be. I probably would not qualify. Yeah. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the playoff race, Tom. Last night, the return of Elvis in Columbus, Elvis Merzlikins, who, really carried them for an extended period after, they lost Korpisalo in net and played well and then suffered a concussion. And the Blue Jackets have faded a little bit, and I think most of us attribute it to the loss of Seth Jones. I don't know that there could be any team that could lose any player that's more valuable to their team than Seth Jones was for Columbus. And I mean that from Connor McDavid, from Draisaitl, from Sidney Crosby. I really mean that. I mean, Jones did everything for the Blue Jackets, and they really needed him. But they got a big win last night. Elvis made 26 saves. Now all of a sudden, it's fascinating to me. We're at the 70 game poll. We only got 12 games left for some teams. And, one game just seems to make a huge difference. Like I'm thinking, Columbus, they're going to fade. It's just too bad because they've worked so hard and everything else. And then they get a big win and I'm thinking, well, maybe. So anyway, what's your read on, the Columbus Blue Jackets? And we'll start right there. And then I want to talk about the New York Islanders as well.
So a few things with Columbus. First of all, I think we said this at the start of the year. John Tortorella should be coach of the year. Like in my mind, should be coach of the decade. And secondly, you have to give a ton of credit to the players too, because first of all, losing all the players they did last year, going for their playoff run to free agency, and now you get all these players getting injured, and they still continue on. And you're right, Seth Jones. I agree with you totally on his how valuable he is to his team. Not just because he's such a good player, but because they've lost so much from that lineup. But the players that have come in have bought into the system that John Tortorella wants them to play. And it doesn't matter what the system is. It's his system. It's the fact that how much they bought in. They understand that they have to win 2-1 hockey games. And what they do last night, they won a 2-1 hockey game. So they've I just probably more than any other team I've seen in the past here few years. It's the guys in the locker room that have said, "Listen, we're not folding the tent here. We're not saying we're not good enough. We can make the playoffs here, guys. But it means that every shift, every period, every game, we have to pay attention to all the details that John Tortorella wants to play. Have us do them. Get the puck out of our zone. Get it in the other zone. Chip away at it. Don't try to make huge plays all the time." And they've done that. So I love that team. I think it's the kind of thing that you get young players that play that. Now that's the way they're starting off their careers. Now you've got a system like Pittsburgh's got going, where guys will get hurt, but other people will step in, and there's a system there, and the guys know, okay, if we play the system, it doesn't matter who we're missing, we still got a chance to win. So I love it. And I know John Tortorella can rub some people the wrong way, but man, can he coach? He's doing a fantastic job there.
Yeah, no, he can, and he's played well. You look at this team, and we've circled around it, but let's talk specifically about their issues. Josh Anderson coming into the season, everybody viewed him as an important player on that team. He's big, he's strong, he's feisty, he'll fight a little bit, he's tough, and he can score some goals. He's kind of the he's certainly a power forward, but he's not an exceptional power forward, but he's an important one. And Atkinson scored more than 40 goals last year. Well, he's out again now, and he only had 12 goals in 44 games, prior to this latest injury he has. So, they've just been a survival, and I think survival skills are an athletic ability. If you can figure out how to survive when your team is lost, I think that's key. But I always like to identify who the key player is, down the stretch. So we got 12 games left, and you look at this, the big board now, as we'll call it, and the Blue Jackets have played 70 games, and they've got 81 points. So they're the number one wild card team. And Carolina's the number 2, and they're 2 points behind, but they've played 3 fewer games, as have the New York Islanders, who are not in a playoff position right now. Now the New York Rangers are 3 points back now, but they've played better recently than those teams. And then you've got Florida, who feels to me like they're out of it, but they got the same number of points as the New York Rangers. So where do you see, can Columbus hold on there given those circumstances? But more importantly, Tom, identify, if you will, who is the guy that's got to carry this, or is it just John Tortorella that's got to?
Well, I think the great thing, and I see the way you put it there, is it John Tortorella. And my theory is that coaches get too much credit when they win and too much blame when they lose. I think the great thing about John Tortorella is that he's made it a players' team, right? I mean, he's got the system, but his coaching method is to say, guys, okay, here's the way I want you to play. Now it's your game. You've got to go play it. It isn't me being this brilliant coach behind the bench, pulling all the right strings. It's I've taught you enough. I've shown you what leadership is, how to play with discipline, how to play the system. Now you've got to go out there for 60 minutes and do it. And that's the great thing about his coaching. So I think it's that whole team, but I do think Elvis, the goaltender, is going to have to play a big role in it too. They're going to have those nights where they're getting a lot of shots against some better team, but he holds them in there. And then they're smart, right? They keep the shots to the outside. They minimize the great chances, and then they take advantage when they have to of maybe a mistake with the other team because they're pushing so hard, and they get the goals they have to have. They get those 2 or 3 goals every game. So I think it's that whole team thing. I don't think it's one guy. I don't know. Is Seth Jones coming back this year? Is he done? Or
well, he's coming back, but it's not going to be till the end of the season or in the first round. I think it seems more likely, in my opinion. But here's the question. Another question, I think, and I've thought about this question too, and I kicked around the idea of naming Zach Werenski, but who's had an exceptional season, and he's one of the reasons why they've managed to overcome a little bit the loss of Seth Jones, as Werenski has played so well. And I felt that Seth Jones and Werenski were the best tandem going there in the for most of this season. But I wonder, have we reached the point with Elvis that he sort of has that kind of aura that we used to see with, say, Dominik Hasek? Now I'm looking back at when he played when he came in and replaced Korpisalo, where he had at one point, a bunch of shutouts, but He goes in a stretch here when they really needed him. He gave up no goals, 2 goals, 2 goals, 2 goals. And then he had a rough patch where he was giving up 3 and 4, 4 and 3. And now in his last 2 starts, he's 2 and 1 again.
Yep.
And I just sort of sense that Elvis is just one of those goalies where he gives his team incredible confidence. Like they just think this guy can do no wrong. And
Jordan Binnington, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting is that everybody said last year, well, this is the best goalie not in the NHL. Like I heard that from scouts. Like he's going to come over and he's going to have an impact. Right. And then he struggled early on, as we all know. Had some adjustment issues, and then now he's looking like the guy again. Like I think like if going in, I mean, I would already pencil him as the number 1 goalie in Columbus. Oh, yeah. I don't mean to disrespect Korpisalo, but Elvis looks like the real deal to me, and he looks like he has an aura, And how many goalies do we know through the years? There's guys like Brodeur had an aura, Patrick Waugh had an aura. I think Mike Richter had an aura, and I think Elvis does. So I tend to agree with you. I think Elvis is the key. He just needs to get hot. And the other important thing is we haven't mentioned is they're not a great scoring team.
Right.
They're not a team that's going.
That's being very polite the way you say that. Yes.
Yeah, they're not. They are not. But anyway, that is a good jump off point because that's what I want to talk about with the New York Islanders. So, the New York Islanders have scored 188 goals. Now, just to give you an indication of where that sits, they have scored 56 fewer goals than Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, we're approaching 1 goal per game less than the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yeah. 44 fewer than the very hot Philadelphia Flyers, and 50 fewer goals than the Washington Capitals. And this Islander team, in the post-John Tavares era, it is really at a disadvantage trying to compete in this very difficult division, at least offensively. Now, what they do have is they have the Barry Trotz.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. But
cousin,
it hasn't been enough, Tom, and especially recently. And I wonder, is what we see, what we're seeing on the ice right now, is that a reflection of a team that's just in a dry spell, or has it caught up to them? And this is a problem.
Or is it have they made a decision at the coaching level that listen, we don't have enough to open up the floodgates and try and go score a bunch of goals. So let's sacrifice some offense and supposedly play better defense. See, I think to me, I watched them play, and they always are trying to play that control game. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but now you're going to limit some of your offensive chances, right? You're not taking as many risks to try to score goals. You're playing a better defensive game. It certainly worked at the start of the year, right? Would they win at the start of the year?
Well, they did, but now that everybody's in, supposedly in playoff mode, right? Like even the New York Rangers have scored 40 more goals than the New York Islanders.
Now,
I think that's a significant number.
But they play a different game though too. The Rangers open it up. I mean, Panarin and Zibanejad, they let those guys see. There's no Panarin or Zibanejad on the Islanders. So I think the team is now the coach to say, all right, guys, we can't open it up like Panarin does or Zibanejad does. We don't have somebody that's going to score 5 goals in one game. We have to play a better defensive game. But the coaches with the Rangers, I think, are saying, yeah, guys, we need to play a good defensive game. We've got good goaltending, but we want to open it up too. We have some great offensive players. Let's let them go and score goals.
But Tom, if you hold the opposition to 2 goals, you still got to get 3 to win. And they haven't shown, particularly lately, they haven't shown an ability to do that.
Right, they've had some injuries too, right? I mean, Clutterbug the other day got hit with a skate there, and
that's right. I guess that's my question to you though. Is it as simple as you're saying that they don't score because of the style they play, or just don't they have the ability to rise up and get the 1 more goal than they need than the other team? Because that's ultimately the goal of this game. The objective is to get 1 more goal than the other team.
Totally.
Do they have that ability?
Yeah, I just think they're more designed, and the coaches want them to play that good defensive game. But you're right, because I just think the offense just isn't there. I don't think they're as good as they were in that long stretch at the start of the year where they went undefeated. And I don't think maybe they're as bad as some of the games that they're playing right now. I think that right where they're at, or in that bubble to make the playoffs is really what they are as a hockey team. So I guess the question is, that if that's what they are, like, who is going to get that final spot? I mean, Carolina's got that final spot, or maybe final 2 spots, right? Because Columbus isn't guaranteed either. But I just think if I look at all those teams, I like Columbus because they've done this all year long. Nothing's changed for them. They play without their key players. All the guys they lost last year and all that. They just continue to hang in there. And then of those remaining teams, I just think the Rangers have been the hottest team. Now they come in a little bit. They had lost 2 games to the Flyers. But it just, I see them as a team that when I watch them play, they've gotten so much better during the season. Whereas when I look at the Islanders, they were great at the start of the year. Now they've tailed off, right? I just think the Rangers have continued to get better and better. I think that's the same thing with Carolina. I mean, I guess it's kind of, they've been pretty consistent throughout the year. But I watch the Rangers and I just think, wow, man, if they can they got a tough schedule coming up, but if they can put it all together, I like them for that final playoff spot.
You like the Islanders?
The Rangers.
Oh, you like the Rangers?
Yeah, I do. I just think they've continued to get better and better through the year.
Yeah, no, they have improved. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, the issue with the Islanders too is you wonder. Like, I liked what Lamoriello did at the trade deadline. Yeah. I think Pajot is a good hockey player, and I meant exactly what I said. Like, I think he's just a good all around player. Yes. I think he does a lot for you. But, they've played 6 games and he's -6. Now, we can talk about that. Is that a team statistic? Because he didn't suddenly get to the Islanders and forget how to be a good hockey player. He still is.
Yep.
But he scored a couple of goals. And I like the defensive acquisition, Green. I think he's a Barry Trotz type of player, and that's the style they're going to play. And, their style really is designed for the playoffs. When you get in the playoffs, you don't mind telling your team, okay, all we got to do is get 2 or 3 goals and we should be able to win because we're going to hold them to 1. But I guess the question now is, was it short-sighted not to go out and try to find a goal scorer, or are you of the mind that, one guy isn't going to change anything?
Right. I think that's a very good point. I think to me, by the acquisitions they made the decision to strengthen what they've already got, and that's that good all-around team game. Right? You're right. They just by the fact they didn't go get a goal scorer kind of tells you. But apparently, I guess Lou was after everybody. Rumors are going on that he was after different players, but ultimately settling on the guys he got. They're just saying, okay, here's what we are, and we're just going to add to what we are and make ourselves even more of what we are, and that's that good 2-way team that plays a lot like Columbus does, whether you need to win those 2-1, 3-2 games, and that is very often how you win the playoffs. But again, they've got to get in the playoffs too. So,
well, if I was a lawyer and had to file a brief defending your position about what you think about the Islanders, what I would say is right off the bat is, they have guys on that team that can play offensively. Like Barzal is a dynamic player offensively. Like he's one of my players that I love watching. He's just fun to watch. He creates space. He darts in and out. He's fun.
Yep.
Brock Nelson's got 24 goals this year. That's a fine season for Brock Nelson. Anders Lee has scored 20. Now he's capable of scoring 30. I think that gives license to exactly what you're saying, that the reason they don't score a lot of goals because this is the way they play. That's the reason they believe that they can, be successful. So I'm worried about the Islanders making it, and it's one of those situations where it always sounds funny when you say it because if they can get in the playoffs, I wouldn't want to play them because they can play so well defensively.
Oh, totally. How about Toronto? How about Toronto up there with 79 points too, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I think they're gonna.
Their division is different. Yeah.
They're going to be able to hold that position. I don't think they're going to get challenged, but they're going to have the same problems they have every year, which is they're going to get in, and when the hockey changes, they're still going to be trying to get 5 goals.
Yeah, it's funny too. They're that kind of team that if they continue on with the way they're doing now, you're right. They're going to be done. Maybe they'll win a game or 2 in the first round, but they'll be done. But they're also that team that young team that something just clicks with them, and they finally go, "Oh, geez, this is how we're supposed to play." They could also go a long way in the playoffs with their talent they've got there too. They got good goaltending. So, my gut tells me that they're not going to do it because they haven't shown that they can do it. But man, if it ever all comes together for them at the right time, they could do something.
Well, we don't have time now, but I did want to get into it, and we will on Wednesday. Is you didn't like the coaching change in Vegas?
No.
But and to be honest with you, I'm a big Gerard Gallant fan as well.
Yeah.
But it's hard to argue with the results because of this morning, the Vegas Golden Knights are in first place. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They've actually played better under DeBoer than they had under Gallant.
And they made some trades though too, right? I mean,
and what I think were good trades, and but they're doing that. Stone is injured. Marc-Andre Fleury has not played particularly well.
Right.
Let me rephrase that. He's been inconsistent.
Yes,
he's been up and down, and for good reason. He lost his father. It's really bothered him. He has not had a smooth recovery from that, and I thought it was out of respect for Fleury that they made that trade for Robin Lehner. I think they said, look, we know you're grieving. We want to lessen your workload. You're still our guy, but we'll bring in somebody who we think can help. And I think it was a great move. I really do to do that, because I think they really have a great appreciation for what Marc-Andre Fleury has done, not only on the ice but off the ice.
And the way he carries himself, he's such a professional, fun guy. He's the guy you want as the face of your franchise, right? So
and when they let fans in to watch them practice, everybody concentrates on Fleury because he'll play to the fans, and he'll do push-ups when guys are coming in on a breakaway, and he does crazy things. He's a really fine guy. I've dealt with him throughout his career, and I've never had a bad experience in talking to Marc-Andre Fleury. But anyway, that's for next Wednesday, and we, as usual, we've run out of time. Good show today, Tom, and thanks to all of you for listening.
See everybody on Wednesday.